So in last week's video, I mentioned that if you're still using one of those USB chargers and you've been in the hobby for a while, that you're making a mistake. So in this video, I'm going to show you kind of like how to properly take care of your LiPo batteries and what kind of stuff you should be using. LiPo batteries are one of the best things that's ever happened to RC. They've taken electric vehicles from the beginner-friendly, affordable option to like the cream of the crop performance-wise, especially when paired with a brushless motor. But we need to be a little bit careful when we take care of these LiPo batteries because they can pose a risk. One of the things that you're going to need is a good battery charger. Honestly, when it comes to chargers, I think you should buy the best battery charger you can afford, but at the bare minimum, it needs to be able to charge your battery at various amperages, and it needs to be able to charge it to a storage state. A lot of chargers these days have a storage mode, and you definitely want to look out for that. Another good thing to be able to do is discharge the battery if you need to. Another thing you're going to want is one of these little LiPo bags, or several of these little LiPo bags maybe. They come in this big version, and they also come in little tiny versions that you can use to charge your batteries in. But you can also charge your batteries in this big version because it has these little flaps. This is basically just good for storing your batteries and making sure that if there is an event that it's contained inside this bag for as long as possible. Another thing you're going to want is the ability to discharge your battery all the way to zero when it comes time to dispose of the LiPo battery. I'll link some items in the description that are cheap little dongles that you can put onto the battery itself, and it'll discharge it all the way to 0 volts so that you can recycle it. So this is the charger that I use. This is a Zeee iMARS D300. This is a great charger, capable of doing a lot of really cool things, but we're not going to focus on the features of this as much as we are the features that you just absolutely have to have in a battery charger if you want to take good care of your LiPos. Basically, you want to be able to select the correct amperage. So you want to be able to charge these batteries at 1C. Some battery manufacturers say you can charge faster or at higher amps, but I don't mess with that. I charge at 1C, and that's just how I live my life. So 1C for this 5200 milliamp battery would be 5.2 amps. So every 1,000 is 1 amp, basically. Every 1,000 milliamps is 1 amp that you can charge at, and then it would be 0.2 for the 200, 0.38, but could be charged at 0.4 or 0.3, 0.9, could be charged at 1 amp. 2 amps, and that's pretty much how that works. So you want to make sure that you can charge at the correct amperage for the battery that you're trying to charge. You also want to make sure that the charger is capable of charging however many cells you have. The other most important thing is the ability to perform a storage charge. You want to be able to charge that battery to 3.8 volts per cell or discharge that battery to 3.8 volts per cell. That is where LiPos like to be stored at. LiPo batteries are happiest in a cool, dark place, not too cold, not too hot, in a LiPo safe container at 3.8 volts per cell. Let's charge a battery real quick. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find the power lead on our battery. We're going to plug that in. Then we're going to get our balance lead, and we're going to plug that in here, just like that. Usually on the balance lead, it'll kind of tell you, like it says 2S through 6S there, but there's also these little grooves that'll match up with the grooves on the lead. Just make sure you plug that in right. You should be good to go. So you can see now that the charger is plugged into channel B. It's telling me the voltage of the charger. Your charger may do that, your charger may not. We'll go ahead and select channel B. You can see that this tells me the individual cell voltage, so I can tell that this battery is fairly balanced. You really don't want to see these numbers too far off. If you do, if your charger can, you can try to balance the battery, but if they're like way off, like if one's like 0 and one's like 4.2 or something like that, then your battery's probably dead and you'd probably be better off just discharging it and getting rid of it. All right, so let's start charging it. You can see here, if you have this charger, then you have this select task thing. Your charger may be different though, but we have it, it's currently at storage. We're gonna go to charge. We're going to just kind of check everything over. Target voltage, yeah, 4.2 sounds good. Cell count, it is a 3S. Our target current, we could do 0.9, but it would charge super slow. So we're gonna go up to 5.2. And then hit start task. And then it should start charging this battery. One important thing to note that I did not do in this video because I was just doing it for a quick example is that my battery's just out like this. Typically you want to have this inside the LiPo bag just in case while you're charging or doing any kind of charger operation. You also want to make sure that you attend the battery while it's charging. You don't want to just start it and leave the house just in case. You want to be safe. Also, if you're in the market for a charger and kind of on a budget, I would definitely recommend this iMARS Mini. It's a super safe little charger. It's kind of slow, but it's super affordable, especially if you have your own power adapter. You just need a 65 watt USB-C power adapter, and this thing's only 25 bucks. If you don't have the power adapter, they sell it with one, but then it'll be $45. Either way, you just plug it in and get it going. It automatically detects the battery type and the amperage that it should do, as well as the cell count. It's a really easy one to deal with, and it also has a storage mode so that you can put your batteries at 3.8 volts per cell. All right, so now that we know what we need to properly charge and store our batteries, it's time to talk about what we do with batteries that have sort of reached their end of life. So over time, the chemicals inside, the electrolytes inside of the battery can start to decompose, and that'll cause the battery to poof up. Or you might notice that the battery's just not running as long as it used to, or that the battery cell voltages, like the balance, is starting to get out of whack. One way or the other, eventually you're going to have to dispose of your LiPo battery. So what you're going to need here is a discharger. Basically, you need to be able to discharge that battery down to 0 volts. Now, dischargers come in a lot of different shapes and sizes and forms, but most often you're going to find one that's like a bulb type, or like a little thing that you plug onto the battery lead that slowly drains it down to 0 volts. Now, I'm going to link a few in the description, and you can check them out there. I don't actually have a dedicated discharger anymore because I have learned that if I leave a battery plugged into my iMARS D300 when it's doing like a storage charge or a discharge, after it completes, it will actually continue to discharge that battery slowly all the way down to 0 volts. I learned that on a perfectly good battery, and then checked it again with a battery that I wanted to dispose of. So that works. Anyway, once the battery is discharged, you're going to want to take it to a place to have it recycled. You could take it to Best Buy, you could take it to Batteries Plus, Home Depot. Just do a Google, there's a place around you for sure that'll take your LiPo batteries and recycle them for you. When it comes to LiPos, we always have to talk about safety, and so I'm going to give you guys a list of things that you should definitely not do. It is in no way an exhaustive list because there's many things that you should not do with your LiPo batteries, but one that people may do is try to vent a poofy battery. Do not puncture your LiPo battery, ever, under any circumstance. Do not crush your LiPo battery. Do not cause physical harm in any way to your LiPo battery, because that is how things happen. Do not use anything other than a LiPo charger to charge your LiPo battery. You may read somewhere some tips and tricks for reviving a dead LiPo battery that involve using like a NiCad setting or something crazy like that. Don't do that. Just not worth it. They're cheap nowadays, just don't do it. Do not charge your LiPo batteries unattended, and do not leave your batteries in direct sunlight or in a hot car or anywhere where they're going to get hot, because a hot LiPo battery is a scary LiPo battery. Now, there are a lot of other things you shouldn't do with your LiPo battery. You shouldn't submerge it in liquid for a long period of time. You shouldn't do all sorts of different things. You can look probably on the back of your battery and find like a list of things that it says not to do. I'm going to try to preemptively answer some questions that you guys might have, but if I don't cover them here, then feel free to leave a comment and I will answer as soon as possible, or I'll look the question up and get back to you as soon as I can if I don't know the answer. One question that I feel is pretty common is like, how long can you leave your LiPo battery fully charged for? And honestly, I don't know the hard, fast answer to that. I think most people would say that you should only leave the battery fully charged for as long as necessary. But I sometimes charge my batteries the day before. Like if I want to go run tomorrow, for instance, I might charge batteries tonight. And I think that's fine. I haven't had any issues with batteries like that. Like no cell voltage is starting to get weird or anything like that. Another question might be about like maybe your battery not charging. Maybe your charger is kind of giving you an error. So there's a number of reasons that it could be, but one problem is storing your batteries at too low of a voltage, and eventually it goes under the minimum threshold, which is 3 volts. And once it goes down there, it won't charge back up. That's why the storage voltage is like super important. We want to make sure it's not too high where things are getting out of balance and the battery is kind of like unstable, and we don't want to go too low where the battery might dip into that like danger zone as far as voltage goes. Another question you might have is maybe you only have this balance lead. This is kind of common with a lot of like the smaller batteries or like a Traxxas LiPo battery. You don't have this. The one connector is just the balance lead. In that situation, you might have trouble with like a charger like the one I'm using. Some chargers will not just charge only through the balance port. Some will, some won't. So it kind of just depends on what you get or what you have. But most LiPo batteries should have both leads. And that is, with both of those plugged in, is how you should be properly charging a battery. This isn't really a question, but you may also notice that a lot of chargers out there have XT60 style connectors on them. The XT60 on the charger is really, really common. You'll see it all over the place. You just need like a adapter like this. The Gen ones come with a whole bunch of these adapters that fit most batteries, or you can make your own. Like here's an XT60 to an XT30. No big deal. If you have any other questions, please leave them in the comments. Those are just the ones that I could think of off the top of my head, questions that I had when I was going through the battery experience. But yeah, please leave a comment. I'll answer whatever I can. And if not, you know, we have a lot of helpful people that are subscribed to this channel that often help. Speaking of which, if you haven't already, you should subscribe. And if you like this video, you should like this video. This was a basic sort of overview of the main things that you need to know as far as LiPo batteries go. This should keep you pretty safe. This should keep you pretty good. If you want to learn more about LiPo batteries, there's a lot of resources out there where you can learn like the finer technologies. But basically, charge safely, store safely, don't do bonehead things to your batteries, and you should be in good shape.